Barbara Greer thought that lesbian love stories should be as ubiquitous as Coca-Cola, and she refused to apologize for it.
I'm utterly and completely ruthless.
Whatever got in her way got shoved out of the way.
How a local woman became one of the most influential publishers of lesbian literature. Check it out on A People's History of Kansas City.
Look at that star over there. That's Betelgeuse.
Let me introduce you to Vyojit Gokhale.
It's Cassiopeia over there.
He's a physicist and astronomer.
And that's Perseus, one of my favorite constellations.
We did some stargazing this winter at Thousand Hills State Park. It's in Missouri, just outside the city of Kirksville, where he's a professor at Truman State University.
I saw a shooting star.
Oh, wow.
This park has an increasingly rare view.
You see there's like a fuzzy band? That's the Milky Way. You should see the summer Milky Way. The summer Milky Way is a sight to behold.
Out here, do you get a good view?
Oh, yeah.
About 80% of North Americans can't see the Milky Way with its billions of stars. There's just too much artificial light where they live. And Thousand Hills isn't one of those places that's so remote and dark and starry that you'll see it like on the cover of National Geographic. But that's exactly why we're going to talk about it. See, Thousand Hills State Park recently became the 12th place in the world to earn the status of Urban Night Sky Place from DarkSky International. That means there's significant light pollution in the area. The park is just a few miles outside the city of Kirksville. But there's a real effort here, one that we'll get into later, to hold on to the night and to this view that Vyojit helped me appreciate even more.
I grew up in a big city in India, in Bombay. You could barely see any stars in the sky.
An astronomy club took him on trips outside the city. It was like a 3-hour drive.
That's how far we had to get to see the night sky in all its glory. And I was taken in right away.
He was probably 9 years old, but 3 decades later and on a different continent.
And the stars are the same.
Is there something powerful about that?
Yeah, both in space and time. Spatially, someone in North Africa or anywhere in the northern hemisphere looking up is seeing the same stars as you are. 1,000 years ago, we were doing the same thing. 10,000 years ago. As long as I live, I want to continue to do this. And I want my kids to be able to do the same if they want to. Just sitting and looking up into the sky and letting your imagination go wherever it takes you.
But how long will kids growing up in Kirksville be able to visit this park just outside their city and see this many stars? Thousand Hills State Park is at a fork between two possible futures. If the light pollution from homes and businesses nearby keeps growing, the Milky Way could fade into memory here too. But it doesn't have to, because today we can light our surroundings so we can see without spoiling the sky so much. That's the second possible future, in which our cities gradually transition to well-designed lighting. The sky in this state park would get even darker, and kids here would get to see the Milky Way shine even brighter. From the Kansas News Service and KCUR studios, you're listening to Up From Dust. I'm Celia Yopis-Jepsen. Turns out, it is possible to have too much of a good thing, and lighting is the proof. Lighting is great. It is a cornerstone of modern living. It keeps our transportation, our hospitals, our economy going even at night. But it can also hurt our health and ecosystems. It can waste energy. Today, we'll meet people who are changing their surroundings and getting smarter about lighting, and we'll learn how to pick good light bulbs and fixtures. Interest in dark skies is growing, not just among stargazers and physicists, also doctors, ecologists, bird lovers, gardeners, people with very different interests. Why? Because the benefits of fighting light pollution will go far beyond a starry night. Okay, I met up with Vyojit because I wanted to understand two things, really. Why do dark sky advocates say that we can cut light pollution and still have the light we need? In fact, even see better. And secondly, knowing how much we rely on artificial light nowadays, Can we honestly cut back on it enough to make any difference?
It can be done.
Let's start with the second question.
Could I ever see the Milky Way in a city?
You can see it from Flagstaff.
Flagstaff, Arizona. It's not a huge city, but it's a respectable 80,000 people within city limits and then 150,000 in the wider metro area. You'd think it would be too much skyglow, but
I've stood in the parking lot of the Olive Garden in the middle of Flagstaff, looked up and seen the Milky Way.
If I stood in a restaurant parking lot at night in Kirksville and looked up, would I see the Milky Way?
Nope, not even close.
let's pause on that. Kirksville has 17,000 people. Even with its surrounding towns, what's called the Kirksville micropolitan area, we're talking just 1/5 the population of the Flagstaff metro area. And yet Kirksville is losing its stars fast.
One of the taglines for Kirksville is the North Star of Missouri. We have gotten to a point where you can barely see the North Star from Kirksville now.
But don't think of this as a story about Kirksville. Not really, because it's not like Kirksville's doing particularly bad. Most cities are creating loads of avoidable skyglow. That's why even in a city like Kirksville that's not all that big, light pollution is bleeding in all directions, including into Thousand Hills State Park.
Look at that part of the sky over there, yeah? Just the sky color.
Whoa.
The glow from Kirksville and other towns eats into parts of the view at Thousand Hills.
Almost like twilight over there. It feels like the sun's gonna rise.
Scientists say the night sky, as we see it with our eyes, is getting about 10% brighter per year here in North America. That study was published in the journal Science, and they put it like this. Say you live somewhere where you can see about 250 stars, and you give birth this year. When your kid turns 18 and looks up, they'll only see 100 stars. All that to say, Kirksville's situation is typical. Flagstaff is the outlier.
Flagstaff is the first dark sky city in the world.
It has been taking steps to prevent unnecessary light pollution for decades, to fantastic effect. And for a bit of context, night sky protections in the U.S. do tend to be strongest in the Southwest. The starry nights there are seen as a big tourism asset. People who live there really love them. And the region has really important astronomy labs. Okay, so places like Flagstaff prove we can have cities with a lot less light pollution. Back to my other question. Scientists who worry about light pollution impacting our health or wildlife or astronomy, they argue we can cut light pollution and see just fine.
In fact, it is exactly what we try to advocate. The technical solutions to light pollution already exist.
The first thing you need to know is that light can be wasted, just like anything else, say water. You're carrying water in a bucket, being sloppy, a bunch sloshes out the top. Well, we're being sloppy with light, sloshing it all over the place. Picture the classic street lamp, a globe on a metal pole, like you might see lining Main Street. Light shines in every direction out of a globe. All the light going upwards escapes into the sky without even illuminating any of the stuff we want to see. This escaped light is just pointless, instant sky glow.
What's the point in spewing light into the sky? I mean, who benefits from that?
Second thing to know is that some light actually makes it harder for us to see. For example, it makes your pupils shrink.
And it takes a while for your eyes to recover.
Especially when it travels from the bulb straight to your eyes. And there's a lot of that. It's called direct glare. So with our classic lamppost, another chunk of the light coming out of it messes with our pupils. And that makes the shadows around us become blacker to our eyes. It makes it easier for someone to jump out of a doorway and surprise us. On the other hand, imagine now a lamppost designed to only angle light at the ground.
Lighting that goes where the light needs to go doesn't shine in our eye.
Our pupils are nicely adjusted, shadows aren't so dark, we see into them better. Now, there's other ways we waste light too. encouraged by the advent of LEDs.
Yeah, this is a well-known paradox in conservation efforts. Making things more efficient means generally that whatever that resource is has become cheaper, and then people tend to overconsume.
LEDs have this reputation for being so energy efficient that it's like, why not fill our neighborhoods with facade lights and such? And why bother turning things off? Office lights when we go home, or patio lights when we go to bed. And that kind of wasted light is the easiest to fix. If we can channel our inner parents or grandparents, that voice reminding us to turn off the lights when we leave the room, maybe we can do it. So, DarkSky International estimates that at least 30% of our outdoor light in the U.S. is wasted light. Let's see what getting smarter about light looks like.
So my name is Ryan Persinger.
It's time to meet this guy.
I am the park superintendent here at Thousand Hills State Park.
Remember, Thousand Hills recently earned a distinction.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We are an urban night sky park. It feels great.
Urban night sky spot means the park is doing everything it can to give people, quote, an authentic nighttime experience in the midst of significant artificial light.
It was a lot of work, 3 years worth of changing light fixtures and writing an application and making the park and the lights compliant.
And they're almost done. At this point, there's just some street lights and parking lot lights owned by a utility that will take another year to address.
The point of this certification is not to just get rid of all of the lights, because we want lights on the ground so we're safe. We just don't want them pointing up so we can't see the sky, or pointing in our eyes so we can't see it all.
Like Vayojit, Ryan too is a city kid.
Yes, I am. Very much so.
And was about the same age when he took a trip that he loved, camping in the Rockies.
Yeah, it just clicked.
Later, he studied wildlife conservation and interned at a state park.
From there, I just never wanted to do anything different.
So, Thousand Hills, very pretty area.
We get between 500 and 600,000 visitors a year.
There's 14 cabins, 2 campgrounds,
Almost 17 miles of trails.
petroglyphs, oak hickory forest, and a lake.
This is Forest Lake.
Fishing is a huge draw, which makes the marina a good place to check out the outdoor lighting. And I got to see some of the bad lights that they were still working to get rid of on poles in the parking lot.
It does light up the parking lot, but also they're so bright that they actually blind you with the glare. So it's kind of counterproductive.
Plus, the light blasts straight into the adjacent forest.
They point sideways and up.
You can see each individual tree and branch because they're so lit up. Bad for wildlife. The good fixtures, the new ones, steer light downward.
Lighting up the ground, which is what you need to be able to see. They also are the warm colored, so more orange than that bright, obnoxious white-blue light.
Yeah, that's a really important thing we haven't touched on yet. The color of bulbs. Think of it as bright white versus like yellow or amber or orange. LEDs made that bright white super common. But when it gets in your eyes,
They ruin your night vision, whereas when you have the amber colored lights, you can see past the light into those shadows and see what's there. You can see further.
maybe you've noticed while driving, when those extra white headlights come at you, that particular color intensifies glare. And since LEDs are really directional, they cut straight through the air more directly than older lights that dispersed more. The effect when that bright white gets in your eyes is not fun. Hey, these cabins have a great view.
Yeah, they back up right up to the lake, and they're kind of up on the hill.
Why am I staying in town? The fixes at Thousand Hills make it cozier. Used to be the cabins had globe fixtures outside their doors that cast light in all directions. The new lights are flush with the ceiling above the door, no direct glare or waste,
Yes, you'll be able to see the sidewalk to the door better.
plus amber bulbs.
Your night vision will just be better as a whole.
These changes make tent camping cozier too.
Just behind the shower house were the campsites, and they lit up those campsites all night long before we changed the lights.
Without glare in their eyes, campers can relish the red glow of a campfire, enjoy ghost stories, or take in the Milky Way. Of course, these fixes do cost money.
It's easy to replace a light fixture, but unfortunately, a lot of these dark sky light fixtures are quite expensive. So say the cabins, each of those light fixtures were under $100.
For lights on poles, like at the marina,
They can be well over $1,000 each.
$1,000 for one light fixture?
Yeah. The pole is the same. We just had to get a specific light fixture that we fabricated to fit that pole.
Think there's any chance other state parks in Missouri will try to follow suit, or is it too expensive?
No, yeah, there's plenty of state parks that are already working on certifications. So there will be more parks in the future in Missouri.
Now, even after parks like Thousand Hills make all these dark sky friendly changes, they could really use some help from the cities and towns around them. And we've got someone who definitely gets that. We'll meet her in a moment. Meet the third person today who's a city kid left changed by an out-of-city experience. It's like today's theme or something.
I'm Daphne Broski-Lang.
Daphne graduated from Truman State University with a physics degree last spring. She grew up in the KC Metro and then really got to see the night sky when she went to college.
It felt just like I was so much more connected to the night sky.
She saw the Milky Way for the first time and got to teach middle schoolers coming to Truman for summer camp about stars and light pollution. She ended up really intrigued by the fact that we already have solutions to deal with this particular environmental issue.
I think it is the easiest environmental issue to solve, or one of them.
And she realized Truman itself could really use those solutions.
When I would have some late nights working in the lab, I would go outside and it would be midnight or 1 a.m. and the birds would be chirping.
Confused by all the light.
It was pretty unsettling, actually.
And felt ironic.
Truman has been designated as a tree campus.
That's an Arbor Day Foundation thing. There are lots of pretty trees around.
So there's wildlife on campus.
The campus has those typical globe lights we talked about, causing sky glow and glare, and not just making it hard for birds to sleep.
Like, I have pictures of my own dorm window, and the light would come in, and our room would be bright all the way through the night.
Daphne and some of her classmates were like, this needs to change to benefit students and wildlife.
And to make Truman stand out as a leader in our community.
They applied for a grant from a campus environmental committee and got $5,000 for a proof of concept, improving lights around dorms to angle downwards and use amber-colored LEDs. And that's when things really snowballed. The next time they asked, they landed more than $50,000 to fix more lights. And though Daphne has since left, she's now in grad school doing astronomy at the University of Virginia, other students and Vyuji keep plugging away. Now the grants add up to almost $100,000 for these fixes. What they're doing shows that less wasteful lighting also helps us see things.
Overall, they look dimmer when you look at them, but we measured the brightness underneath the lights, and we found that on the ground, the illumination level was brighter.
Think about that. They look dimmer from afar, but actually do a better job. And with luck, people will notice.
We're hoping that it can get the ball rolling for downtown Kirksville.
Especially given the news about Thousand Hills State Park becoming an urban night sky spot.
Hopefully that's going to motivate people involved in Kirksville's lighting ordinances or just in local government to start taking these ideas more seriously.
Because she sees the stars at Thousand Hills as an asset, something that Kirksville could embrace and tout to the world. But folks would need to change things up to keep them.
And the more that we add these low-quality lighting fixtures, the less likely that we're going to be able to see the Milky Way in the future, which is pretty tragic.
Now, if momentum were to build in Kirksville, it could be a big deal for Thousand Hills.
Changing the light pollution from the area around the park just a smidge, just a tiny amount, would change our certification here.
That's Park Superintendent Ryan Persinger again. Right now, Thousand Hills is an urban night sky place.
We are just below where we need to be to qualify for an international dark sky park. We're so close.
International Dark Sky Park requires a darker sky. But Ryan thinks urban night sky places are a great start.
Yeah, I think it's a first step kind of in explaining that we're losing our night skies and that it's an easy fix with lights to be able to get them back.
A fix that we can all participate in.
You can make an impact just by switching out your lights at home.
Or say by letting that business down the street know that their lights blind you when you turn into their parking lot.
If, say, every person that lives on the outskirts of Kirksville here was able to have good outdoor lighting, it would dramatically change the sky brightness here.
So say you want to do your bit at home. What are the steps?
The 3 steps are good fixture, low lumens, and then amber colored.
I asked Vayujit to give me a quick rundown. So yeah, number 1, pick good fixtures.
So the fixture ideally should be what is called fully shielded.
So with an opaque cover.
Which means all the light goes downwards.
Basically, we shouldn't generally be seeing bulbs, even through frosted glass. You want a fixture that's designed so that unless you're standing pretty much under it and looking up, you should see light, but not the bulb. We'll link to examples at kcur.org/upfromdusk.
But it's also expensive to change fixtures. So you don't have to change the fixture right away. But the next time something falls apart or you're thinking of renovating or whatever, then keep this in mind.
Next, lumens. The measure that tells you how bright the bulb is.
And so pick relatively low lumen levels.
See, a shield stops you from losing light upwards and horizontally. So you don't actually need a bulb that produces as much light in order for some of it to reach its destination. Try lower lumens.
And there is some subjectivity there, right? What you consider low or what I consider low may be different. And that's fine, right? You're doing it for your front porch. But be conscious about that.
Excess lumens can also backfire on our vision.
And you're wasting wattage, right? You're wasting electricity.
Third step, look for a Kelvin number on the bulb package. It basically relates to color. A lower number is better.
About 2200, 2700 Kelvin lights, certainly below 3000 Kelvin. Or just look at the color, and the more amber colored it is, the better off you are, generally speaking.
Other neat tricks, motion sensors, timers, so lights go to bed when you do. And above all, Vayujit says, make sure outdoor lights have a purpose. Not useful? How about ditching it? Not being used right now? How about turning it off?
Now, there are legitimate security concerns, right? You're a business and you have stuff lying around and you want some light on it. We get it. Well, do it properly then. Good lighting is fine.
And LED lights offer great advantages if we use them right.
LED lights are very directional, and so you can design the light fixture so that if you say the light needs to cut off at the edge of my lot, you can design lights like that.
In Kansas, I've actually been spotting new warehouses and housing being built with fully shielded lighting. No glare when I drive past. Dark skies are starting to matter to a lot more people than astronomers and stargazers, because surrounding ourselves with excess light has pretty widespread effects. DarkSky International estimates wasted outdoor light in the U.S. adds up to 21 million tons of carbon dioxide annually. In money terms, more than $3 billion. There's also human health to consider. After those extra white LED lights took the world by storm, doctors got really worried, and they adopted a stance on it at an American Medical Association meeting in 2016, essentially urging communities to opt for amber and orange LEDs as much as possible. The thing is, bright white LEDs are too much like daylight. Even if they look white, they actually contain a lot of blue spectrum. That messes with our internal biological clock. It affects our sleep much more than traditional streetlights ever did. not getting enough quality sleep is linked to all kinds of health problems like depression and heart problems. One last reason to consider: animals. Fireflies, beetles, moths, birds, bats. Animals that are awake at night need darkness. Animals that sleep at night also need darkness. Got a pollinator garden? Turning off unneeded lights will help the pollinators. For lights that need to stay on, shielded fixtures and amber bulbs will disrupt animals less than exposed and bright white bulbs. These changes aren't going to happen overnight, pun intended.
It will get worse before it gets better. And so you have to be patient. I don't think there are people sitting in smoke-filled rooms saying, let's see how we can ruin the night sky. Yeah, no one's doing that. They're like, you can rely on the good faith of all these actors, the business people, the homeowners, the city administration. The question is, how do you raise this issue to a level where they think action is required? Because, let's face it, they have 10,000 other things to worry about, some of which require immediate attention.
But there are signs that this topic is reaching the desks of more decision makers. About 20 states now have some kind of light pollution law. That's according to the National Conference of State Legislatures. They track that kind of stuff. Some of those laws just pertain to taxpayer-funded lights, like, say, along roads. One state law is about protecting darkness around military bases for nighttime training. There are also cities out there that have rules reining in light pollution. Overall, it may be early days still, and I'm sure Vayojit's right that things are going to get worse before they get better. But maybe someday, Americans will start seeing more stars again instead of fewer.
We need to do this where people live. It's one thing to say, I went to Arizona and Utah in the middle of nowhere in a desert and saw this beautiful Milky Way.
Loads of people can't do that.
Urban children, urban parents, right, who don't have as much luxury of access to money as well as taking a week off and just going off on vacation.
And maybe the single best news in the quest to save night skies is this. When you ditch a bad light, its pollution is, poof, gone. Any other kind of pollution lingers a long time in our environment after we cut off a source.
You can fix the problem in your community if you get together and say, yes, we need lighting, let's do it responsibly so that we are safe, and yet we can see the stars, and yet the pollinators can benefit. This is not my sky or your sky, it is our sky. When you look up in the sky, there should be no limits. Anyone who looks up in the sky should be able to see as far as they possibly can.
Up From Dust is a production of KCUR Studios and the NPR stations of Kansas, aka the Kansas News Service. Light pollution is super problematic for migrating birds. We did a whole episode just on that. Check out our March episode if you missed it. The book Darkness Manifesto by bat scientist Johan Eklöf is a place to learn more about not just bats, but all kinds of fascinating creatures that need the night. The stats I quoted on how few of us can see the Milky Way, those come from a 2016 study in the journal Science Advances. This episode was reported and written by me. My editors are Mackenzie Martin and Stephen Coranda. Big thanks to Suzanne Hogan, Gabe Rosenberg, and Geneviève Demarteau. Jessica Cornelissen is the artist behind our podcast logo. Music provided by David Condos, Tom Lonnie, Milktooth, and Blue Dot Sessions. Sound effects from Pixabay. Next time on Up From Dust, the river beckons. It beckons us to look for beavers and otters and cool fish and to have fun, but it also beckons us because it needs our help. Thanks for listening.